Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. So many things are happening, but yeah. And then I submerged myself in the San Francisco market at one point for about 3 years. And so just anything Northern California, pretty much.
I like it. How about you, Tiffany?
I'm in the Phoenix metro area.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I have a pretty diverse background. I started in lending in 2002, was in title for about 15 years. So lending and title, have my real estate license, and now I work for Radius.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I just was having that talk with Dee this morning that he had no clue that I was in mortgage in lending.
It really helped me a lot with marketing, because in Phoenix, we are like marketing consultants for agents. So we sit down with agents, we figure out their marketing for them, we help them facilitate all that, do it with data. So that's kind of where I come in for today, is basically talking about, from a title perspective, what kind of data you can get from them.
All right. Okay. So we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. We're doing a new series in rooms. So we're having agents come in to speak to a specific topic. And I know that there's going to be more that have registered that will be coming in as we continue to talk through this topic. But today we will be talking about leveraging big data and real estate and how that kind of goes into predicting market trends and looking at buyer behavior to really make sure that we're making as strategic decisions as possible, especially in this market right now. And so I have the lovely Lauren Moseley and Jaynette Lancaster and Tiffany Klem here with me. And so I'm very excited to have this panel of ladies. And we're going to kind of talk through some discussion points right now surrounding this topic. So I guess we'll go ahead and just dive into it. So if each of you kind of want to go around the room and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, we'll kind of just go ahead and get started with that. And then we'll dive into in commercial real estate in San Francisco. So it's coming out of the subprime bust, commercial real estate project leasing primarily, and some sales. So I was doing that for about 10 years. I went on the operations side to the sales side and then back into sales leadership, so director of sales. Then I decided to pivot and go. And so I went from a, Fortune 250 global company, where's the second highest grossing office, with the biggest real estate company in the world, to startup, going from commercial to resi. And I love it because agents are agents. And so then I worked with a small team and grew them from 11 agents doing $250 million to about 80 agents doing $1.2 billion in about 2 years. And yeah, so then from there, decided really cool making someone else a ton of money. I think it's time to do that for myself. So we launched Trajectory Real Estate about almost a year ago, not quite a year ago. And I've got a team of about 8 and loving it. We love our partnership with Radius, and we are at a point with our lead sources and back office operations that we're looking to grow. So it's a little bit about my background and, how we got here today. Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. We're so
So excited to have you in here today. Jaynette, you're up next.
All right, Lauren, amazing background. I'm Jaynette Lancaster, and I have been in the real estate industry and profession for about 22 years. I will say I've done this thing simultaneously with some other business ventures. However, been around in the Northern California area, started with the mortgage industry and ended up in the sales side. So have a small team right now, working on growing that team and doing a little bit more. And I'm just here to service.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're lucky to have you in rooms today. And then our final speaker today is Tiffany.
All right, sorry, mute on mute. So I gave most of my background already. Came from mortgage, did a lot of title and escrow work over the years. And once I saw Radius, I was like, I have to be part of this and really see the vision, especially long-term, helping real estate agents and teams own their own brands, right? Because it's all about you.
Why don't we go ahead and get started? So I think the first question that I really want to pose to the three of you to kind of get us started in this is, so when we kind of started talking about leveraging big data, especially as it relates to real estate, what was kind of your foundational knowledge surrounding the topic, and how was this kind of something that you're already utilizing in your real estate day-to-day operations, and what does that kind of look like for you, for each of you, as you're kind of conducting your business?
I can jump in if that's okay.
No, feel free to jump in wherever. I don't want to have to, like, it's totally fine. I'll call you guys out, but I want to make sure that we're having this be as naturally free flowing as possible.
Perfect. Well, Jaynette and I are very lucky because we're in the Bay Area that we are essentially, I don't want to say we're recession proof, but the numbers from a national scale they simply don't line up with what we're seeing here locally. So, and what I mean by that is, if we're looking at national appreciation rates of being on average about 3.4% year over year, where Jaynette and I are in the Bay Area, it's double that. So it's about 7.6%. And so looking at trends on a larger scale is not always applicable to what we're doing locally. And we can break that down even further. There's going to be certain zip codes, certain school, districts that are essentially like the houses are going to sell there no matter what. I consider us to be very lucky to be kind of at like a center of tech innovation, due to having Sandhill Roads in Palo Alto, Sandhill in Palo Alto, Stanford, Berkeley. We've got Santa Clara. We just have this kind of mecca of great, thought leaders. And so there's going to be always a demand in the Bay Area. So looking at the media, there's as much fear mongering about rates and, inventory and how home values. And you really have to take a look at what's going on locally. In fact, there was this great article that came out today saying that interest rates have dropped. And I'm looking at that as, get that out to all your potential buyers who've been sitting on the fence, because it is the time that sellers are still up here. They're still greedy. Buyers are still here. They're going to sit here for another, 3 to 6 months, not wanting to come together. And so picking some of that news and being able to use it like, hey, let's lock and shop. December's a great time to get into escrow, lock and shop, looking at the numbers, looking at the recession data over time and how that affects this neighborhood or that neighborhood, is key for kind of looking at that big data and really making it applicable to your situation, whether you're trying to talk someone off the fence to sell or to buy.
And then to piggyback on that, we all know that like, if you know your data and if you pay attention to the data analytics and know your area and you can kind of get granular in that and know your governance and things like that, you have the potential to revolutionize the real estate market. Because like she said, our market is so different. We have people calling and buying and asking what they can do like every single day. So it's not that the market is, I mean, I was reading something where we are like up 1% versus, you know, the rest of the area. And you can apply that to various areas, some even in the Northwest, and you just have to pay attention to the data. And if you don't do that, then you'll go along with some of the articles in things that are out there.
So that's the biggest thing about being a real estate professional is you want to be able to provide people with information that they can't just Google, right? So, you know, I live in a very similar situation here in the Phoenix metro area. We have people moving here every single day. A lot of people coming out of California, coming to Arizona. And when the national news says, you know, home prices are declining, our prices are not declining here. We do have low inventory, but we've had low inventory for about 10 years. So that's no news for us. But I think getting super, super specific, because like Lauren said, even neighborhood to neighborhood or school district to school district, it can be different. So you want to provide that information to your client about what their particular situation is. And I think one of the biggest challenges is the national news, right? And the doom and gloom and the, you know, rates are so high. And we keep telling people, especially here in the Phoenix metro area, when those rates hit 6.5%, we're going back to that buyer frenzy, multiple offers. You're going to have to offer $50,000 to $100,000 over asking. You would have really loved that 7% interest rate, right? So take 7% interest rate. You can refinance it if rates come down. But when that frenzy starts again, we saw this last year. We saw 50 to 100 offers on every property, 100,000 over asking. So overpaying for a property just to get into something, that's going to cost you a lot more monthly than a 7% interest rate, right? So we're really, really trying to make people understand that now is the time to buy. Like get in, start building your equity, because the home values are going up. You're missing out on equity. So yeah, I 100% agree with you guys about being really, really localized in your data and making sure you know exactly what areas even within your market are moving and not moving.
Yeah, we use the Altos guide here. And what I love about it is you can go in per zip code and look at, now granted, if there's really low inventory in that zip code, the data and the trends are going to be a little bit skewed. But you can always look at least the absorption level to be able to see, it's a good measure of pent up buyer demand, right? So, and for, I think for Phoenix, for everywhere where there's a big tech kind of focus and you have people of an engineering mindset, they love data. And their expectation is that if they're, at the top of their game, they want to be sitting across the table from someone who's respectively in real estate can talk the talk and be the top of their game. And so to be able to pull that up when we're talking about pricing homes, when we're talking about offers, and really look at like, okay, if only 2 new units came to market, in this past week, yet 5 have been absorbed, that means that it's a big measure of additional buyers, having that demand. And so that helps you get your clients to guide for pricing, is being able to leverage that. I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to choose you to buy or sell, whether or not they like you. But it is nice to not totally rely on charm and to be able to have that data to be able to back it up and to, pull that out when it's time to discuss a price adjustment, when it's time to get your clients to stretch for that bigger price, and using it that way.
Being big on education.
Because it goes into price range. So when you're trying to go to a listing appointment and people are like, oh, the average days on market is 50 days, right? Well, if you're $1 million seller in the Phoenix metro area, or you're a $350,000 seller, those are 2 different worlds that you're living in, right? So I like that it breaks it down by price range too. so that they know that in this zip code, if you're looking at selling your $4 million property, it's going to take you 160 days. If you're looking at selling your 350,000, it's going to take you 14 days, right? So I like that too, to kind of set expectations. And you're really right, Lauren, when you bring data, it's not you just telling them something, it's you showing them, and showing the data is really important. And I think that being able to interpret the data is probably your biggest strength as an agent, and being able to not just throw an Altos report up on social media, but to say, this is what it means to you, right? And interpret it for your client, because they don't know what that means.
But then that also brings in that knowing our buyers and knowing so the buyer's behavior is what we were going to be talking about as well, right? So knowing our buyers, knowing where they fall in those ranges, and knowing exactly how to educate them so they're not in the dark or don't know what to do when we give them the step.
Big data insights with that more traditional market knowledge and personal experience in kind of helping your clients make those decisions, because obviously there needs to be that balance in order to do your jobs most effectively. The next question that I would want to talk through a little bit more.
Kind of a loaded question, but
no. If you guys need to take a second to think about it, that's totally fine too. I wanted to make these questions twofold at least, just so that we could weave in the anecdote, the occasional anecdote in there from time to time.
Well, I think like one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I've been coaching agents doing sales leadership for years and years and years. And, the first thing is like, oh, when you meet a buyer, you got to follow up, you got to put them get them on the portal, get them searching for property. And then this kind of like a lightning bolt. I'm like, is that really what we're doing now? Because they can go on to Zillow, Redfin, they could go on to MLS listings themselves and look at all the same properties. And so I'm trying to like reinvent a little bit how we're doing things. Is that the best way, is to still set them up on our Trajectory Homes property search? Like, why? They can look at all that information. And really, as we're doing our jobs as agents, is it just, here's a portal where an algorithm is picking properties for you? Or should I be doing my job as an agent and going out and searching for a specific property and sending that to you? So, I mean, a couple things is I do tell obviously as a sales leader, I tell my agents, like, gotta get them on the home search, like you gotta have it in the CRM. Like, how else are you gonna know they're looking at properties? But also, like, all right, those are the same things they could see themselves on all these third-party sites. What are you gonna do that's different from any other agent? What are you gonna do that's different from everyone else? And it's like going and actually searching, going on coming soons, with Clear Cooperation. All the coming soons are on the MLS. So, okay, maybe you're setting them up on your company page or through your CRM, but going into the MLS and looking at what's coming soon, they can't find that on Zillow or Redfin, right? And so looking for that, looking at, as we talked about earlier, we got the sellers here, the buyers here, and they're gonna be fighting this until they'll eventually come here. But in the meantime, looking at homes that are priced in properly, and that's why they're staying on the market. And coming with like, hey, we lock and shop our rates while they're low, and we sit here and we watch this house. unless they're doing a big price reduction, it's going to be sitting there for another couple weeks. And then that seller might be at a point where they're going to be entertaining a lower offer. And so trying to come out of the box, and that, whether that's leveraging, looking at days on market, whether that's, exercising your own coming soons, whether it's going through and calling expireds. I think one of the things that we're seeing as any team here, I think I've heard it across masterminds across the country, our online leads are not performing the way they did in the past. And so when your lead pool or your buyer or seller pool, or where you're pulling from with your various pillars, is diminished, anybody who is willing and able, you've got to hold on to them, and you've got to try and work really hard to find them something. And it's kind of going back to grassroots and going back to getting on Vulcan 7 and calling expireds and getting in there to try and actually procure that actual property for your client. And so whether that's, along the same lane as leveraging the big data in real estate, or whether I'm taking it in an opposite direction, it's that able and willing buyer is gold right now. If you have one, and just finding them something is really important.
And then we can expound on that by making sure that we have deeper connections and deeper understandings and relationships with our clients. So those buyers that are out there, even though we're getting this stuff for them, you got to know exactly what it is that they're looking for, making sure that we're overcoming any obstacles and challenges that they may have prior to even putting that stuff in front of them. So if we're making sure that we're doing our due diligence and being very transparent with the information, which is giving them that education, then I think we can kind of win them over and then change some of the behaviors as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. Get into a property.
That is such a funny analogy. I kind of want that catchphrase printed on a shirt.
Yeah. Think of it as an escalator. There's an escalator going, and the people who bought homes, they took that step on the escalator, and look at them going up and up and up. I mean, that's amazing. But if you're just sitting there stumbling over that first step, I mean, there's all these things where, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the disc, but as you can tell, I'm like high D, high C, right? Sociopath there. But you just want to shake people and be like, the only thing you can't change is the location and the lot size. Everything else is changeable. Just get into the market. Just take that first step. I bought my house in May of 2018, and we bought at maybe 4.75%. And yes, that's lower than it is today. But in the meantime, over those past couple of years, I've refied 2 or 3 times, taken money out against the house. And I'm sitting here my rainy day, if a rainy day comes, I have equity I can pull from. This is amazing. I want every one of our buyers to be able to have that option. And we know, again, from looking at historical data, that the worst housing recession was back in 2008, and that's the worst one in the last 50 years. And in the Bay Area, housing prices recovered within 5 years. You expand out 10 years from that, in 2018, housing prices had doubled. It's it's safe. Buy something, please.
Yeah.
Do it. You will not regret it.
Well, and going back to what you said about getting creative for your clients, I think that's where data really can come in. So, when we were at our lowest inventory levels and we had all these buyers, we were pulling data on, who in this neighborhood has a specific floor plan that my client is looking for. And we would send them letters, or we would go door knock and say, hey, I have a buyer for your house. Have you ever thought about selling? And it actually works sometimes, Lauren, you call expireds, 1 out of every however many is going to respond, right? So I think as real estate agents, you really have to get creative and get a little aggressive sometimes to find something for your buyer, because you do have a willing and able buyer. Yeah. So if it's not on the market, that doesn't mean it's not for sale. And even if it's not a fit for your client, you could still pick up a listing. So I really encourage agents to kind of stop thinking, put them on the search and let them go, like you said, and just hope they find something. Because if you do really go out there and get them a property, and I'll give you an anecdotal story here. My husband works in the automotive industry, and he had a fellow coworker whose son had just gotten approved for $200,000 limit. That's not going to get you anything in the Phoenix Metro, right? But there are some outlying areas where you can get something for 200,000. So he had been working with an agent. The agent basically wouldn't even take him out to look at anything. And to me, it's like, okay, let's say you're going to get 3%. That's still $6,000, right? I mean, it's not chump change. So I said to my husband, well, let me refer him to an agent that I work with. And so I referred him to someone who I know would do everything that she could to get him into a property. So they ended up in an outlying area. He got a manufactured home on a large lot for 200,000, and he couldn't be happier. And now she's going to get referrals from them, you know, all that different stuff. Basically, it was her doing what she needed to do to get him into a property. And he cried on closing day when he got his keys. You know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, you know, we live for in this business. It's really doing what we tell people we do, is, you know, giving them the opportunity for the American dream of homeownership. So I think that especially right now, when there's not just deals coming in and everybody's just closing and, you know, cashing checks, we all have to go back to some of the basics. And, you know, your title company can provide you with a lot of data. You know, who has owned this property for 10 years or more? One I love is empty nesters, right? Who lives in a property that they might not need that size property anymore? Who is elderly and lives in a 2-story home? You know, those types of data points, if you go into a neighborhood and you determine that the average turnover in that neighborhood is 6 years, anybody that's 8 years or more is a target for you, right? Because you know that they're going to be more likely to sell. So why take the whole neighborhood when we can take people who are statistically more likely to sell and target market them instead of our shotgun approach that a lot of us use? When I talk to agents about geographic farming, that's one of the biggest things. Look at the data. What's the turnover rate? How many homes? What's the average price point? If you dominate a farm, that means you're getting 20% of the listings out of that farm, right? Is there another agent already dominating that farm? Do you really want to go head to head with them? You know, that kind of a thing. So when you're choosing your areas, it's all about the data. Like, that's where you start. And a lot of agents want to farm their own neighborhood, and I get that because it's easy. But what are the numbers before you start doing that? And even if you do farm an area, do you want to farm everyone in that area? Or do you want to go after people who are more likely to want to sell?
That's something too that comes up, is this likeliness to sell. So we talked a little bit about the buy side. On the sell side, though, okay, I'm a potential seller, and I'm in my property, and I have oodles of equity, but I also have a 2.5%, you know, rate on my mortgage. So what data are we using to convince me to sell, to list, right? It's really sort of being, it's relying on, you know, the features and benefits of the home and what they're missing out on, or the location. And because from an economic perspective, there's not a lot motivating a seller to list and give up that percentage, that low mortgage, to go sign on something bigger, right? So on the listing side, like, what are you guys kind of like, what data points are you using to kind of get that seller like into contract or off into a listing agreement to get them moving?
Yeah, I think you have to look at people who are potentially wanting to downsize, right? Yeah. I think that's a great market, because they know that they can go from a larger home, take all that equity, move it to a smaller home, and, you know, have a lower payment, even though they have a higher interest rate, right? What we're looking at here in the Phoenix Metro too, I don't know if you guys are experiencing this or not. Probably you don't have a lot of new build in your area, right? But we have a lot of new build here. And so the builders are offering crazy incentives right now and buying down rates and doing all this different stuff. So a lot of times it's move out of your old home, move into need to find. And sometimes it's just filtering through and getting that message out that, maybe it's a divorce situation and maybe it's a probate situation, and being the expert so that when those things pop up, they're like, well, what does Lauren think about this? And what does Jaynette think about that? So that, because I have to sell. But there are so many sellers that are just sitting right now and they're like, I am not giving up my 2.5% rate no matter what. So do they have to? And that's why I like going after the expireds, because at one point they had an interest in selling their home. I mean, those are the hottest leads you can get, right?
Yeah. So it's just a matter of going in and having that conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think too that some people panic bought during the pandemic. And I mean, even though I did say when we're talking about buyers that you can change everything except the lot size and the location, people who panic bought during the pandemic and maybe aren't happy with the functionality of their home. They don't have as much equity in there, but that would be that other pain point of just inventory was low, like the skies were falling. We had to work from home, kids were at home, like, what are we doing? So that's another one where I'm trying to talk my agents into it. I'm like, your clients who bought 2 years ago, drop off a CMA, call them, because that might not be their forever home. And it might almost be easier to get somebody who bought in the last couple of years to move again than someone like, I'm thinking like my mom, who's been in that house for 40 some odd years. Like, the idea for moving, it's a nightmare for her. Like,
Absolutely. I think too, one of the big points surrounding anything with data, especially as we introduce AI into the conversation as well too, is a lot of the ethical implications of it as well, and like how to maintain that transparency in your practices and in your strategies. And so kind of shifting gears a little bit into the ethics side of things, how do you all ensure those responsible and transparent practices and strategies in your real estate transactions or in your education with clients when you're talking about, looking at the different listings, making sure that you're presenting the data in sort of that more ethical way?
Well, hard to say. Them, you're not a robot, right? So any pay-per-click leads or home valuation leads, and they think that they're just talking to a robot. So one of the things we've done to get around that is just quick video. Hey, this is Lauren. You were connected over, Google, that you're interested in home evaluation. I've got it right here for you. I'm going to drop it on your doorstep. Looking forward to speaking to you further. So that kind of like done is better than perfect. Just a simple off the cuff video helps. But for our CRM, as soon as somebody's engaging, turn the AI off. It's just going to the AI is going to make you look like an asshole once you're talking to them, and you've got your AI bot just like, oh, did you see this? Like, it's like, turn it off. And that as we look further down the line, as people are going to have AI videos and the videos that are even going to sync your verbiage and your face and your mouth and fake videos of you and stuff. It's like people want to have a personal experience. They want to know that you're human. You're not just letting them send them properties, and have that kind of that human touch. I mean, I think we're not that far off from a major disruption, whether it is, more homes selling on an auction site or some kind of disruptor that is, or maybe it's kind of some sort of AI based, agent that can submit offers. I don't know what it is, but we're at a disruptor point where we have to have that personal touch. We have to show that we have more knowledge and more value to add than any of the economic, kind of disruptor things that are going to come out of that. We were talking the other day about, a potential seller, and it's like they have 3 options. They're going to pick a quality agent. I mean, I'm including my agents as the quality agent. They're going to pick a friend, their sister's dentist's neighbor, or they're going to pick some kind of discount model. Like those are really the 3 options for anybody who's selecting an agent. So what do we want to do to remain that quality agent and to set ourselves apart. And I think the personal touch is great. I've got a member on my team who has 8,000 contacts in his database. And he's like, oh, I've got HubSpot and I've got my Lopo and they're doing this and they're sending that and they're sending that. And I'm like, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Call people. I'm like, there's no way these 8,000 people all know you. And that automated touch, that's what everybody's doing. We have to have something different.
Great. So we have to differentiate ourselves and get back out there and do the basics. Yeah. And that means picking up the phones. You know, I know a lot of people are doing door knocking lately, but not even just the door knocking. I mean, we can go back to doing small little cards or letter writing, but you have to go back to the basics. And it's that personal touch. I even have that. Like, I do not want to do another video or like I have to speak to people in person. So like, this is something great. It's interactive. We're all talking. There's a dialogue and a dialect going on here. A lot of people are looking for that and they're missing that. So we have to get back to the basics in order to reach the people that we need to reach.
Yeah, I think that there was a big push for predictive analytics there for a while too. People were really like, oh, we're going to monitor if they visit a Bye Bye Baby website, then they're going to have a baby and they need to move. And over time, we really found that that was not accurate, right? Like sometimes people have friends that have babies, or sometimes they, you know, they don't necessarily aren't giving you these buying signals based off these predictive analytics. And I think that it's just like you both said, creating relationships, being the consultant, helping them through the largest financial decision of their life, right? To purchase a property and providing value. It's not about trying to guess if they're, you know, what they're going to do based on data. And I think with the AI discussion, that's a big thing. You know, you can interpret a lot of different things from a lot of data, but it doesn't mean that it's accurate. And it doesn't mean that it's going to help your client.
As well, because we all are out here living lives and you just don't know where people are coming from or what their thought processes are or why it is that they're buying or selling. So we need to remember those things as well.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of agents utilize social media as kind of their tool for that relationship building component as well as like making sure that the general public is educated and aware. And that's been, you know, a really critical component of leading to building those relationships and what have you. And so, no, this has been a fantastic discussion. I know we only have 5 minutes left. And so I really want to make sure that if there's anyone that has been listening, if anyone wants to add their 2 cents about anything that we may have talked about in today's session, if anyone has any questions, I wanted to leave about 5 minutes at the end of our room today, just to kind of survey the audience and see how everyone is faring so far. And so, does anyone feel free to turn on your camera, unmute. Do you have any questions? You able to unmute? There might be. You want to make sure. Hi, Daniela. How are you doing? Oh, perfect. Hi, Randy. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm new. I'm pretty much listening, trying to learn some what I would call good practices from the speaker's recommendation, right?
Absolutely. Are you new to real estate or are you new to the Radius community?
Radius community.
I see. Well, welcome. We're so happy to have you. My name is Ela, and I'm our digital community manager at Radius. And so if you ever have any questions or anything you need help with, I'll be the person to talk to. So
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Raul, how are you doing? Do you have any thoughts on our discussion from today that you'd like to share? especially from a mortgage standpoint as well, too. I'm sure you guys are leveraging big data quite frequently over there, especially on the mortgage.
Yeah. I could chip in. So, for those people that don't know me, my name is Raul Ramirez. I'm with Loan Desk, which is the mortgage side of Radius. And I'm actually in the Bay Area too. I know a couple people had mentioned that. I'm in Walnut Creek, which is I don't know, I guess a suburb of Oakland, for those people that aren't close by. But yeah, with mortgage, what I tend to do is something very similar to the agents on this call, where I look at kind of the local trends, because the real estate is very, very localized. Like what's happening, here in San Francisco and Oakland might be different than what's happening in LA, in Phoenix, and other parts of the country. So yeah, focusing in on your local market, and like somebody else had mentioned, that just having that like on the ground data that's not published, out there in social media, is what's going to differentiate you. Also, like I notice a lot of people, like if you look at social media or YouTube or watching videos, there's a lot of like scary posts, and I think it's similar to kind of a couple of us that are older remember the news. There was always like storm watch, and always like a war or something like that. They're always trying to scare you to watch their news channel or their feed, and that's what's happening now, right? So everybody's like, oh, recession, or home values are down 20% or something crazy, right? But the thing is that, like, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, and really focus in on what's actually happening in your market, not the Mortgage Bankers Association, MBA, and they tend to forecast rates. Though they haven't been accurate this last year, but at least it's something to look at. It's a talking point, right? And like, for example, right now, the talk is that interest rates are going to remain higher for longer. It's not good news. It's not what people want to hear. People want to hear that interest rates are going to go down to 4%, in a couple of months. But, at least, you could kind of like strap in with this information, and be like, okay, I know what to expect. And, for us locals here in the Bay Area, we realize that, like, the market's still going up. The rates are high, the prices are high, and they keep going up. And a function of that is low inventory as well. We have historically low inventory, so that's actually what is propping the prices up, on top of some areas are highly desirable. So yeah, I really like the discussion. I do think that we really need to kind of get our data points together, so we have something to talk to our clients about.
Absolutely. So, thank you, Raul. And
Sure.
We are at time for today's room. And so I just want to thank you all for joining us today to talk through all things big data. And I want to give a special shout out to the three lovely women that have joined me for today's talk. So thank you all again for coming prepared, having things to contribute, and just being your most authentic selves. And so I hope everyone has a great rest of their Monday. And if there are no other final questions, we will wrap this up, and we'll see you next time in room. So thank you all so much for coming again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you.